I want to test my ideas. So everything I've done, every way I conducted myself, I want to put it out there. Because if I've conducted myself in an ugly way or holding up a bad idea, then I think one way to get rid of that bad idea or to correct my way is some level of like public humiliation. It's the sick that need a doctor, not the healthy. So the people that are really terrible in my comment section, there's some element of me that thinks like if I cut them out, then they're not gonna, I have no way of like accessing them. It's the school teacher in me of like, get that kid in the back of the room who doesn't want to do anything with school and maybe I can get him, that kind of thing. Social media is not going anywhere. So let's get a better grasp on how to do it better. And if you believe in that and you have this like moral kind of compass that you go, oh, I don't like what happens in these comment sections, I'm with you, then, let's work together.
Are you frustrated with the American school system and the way that it seems to just be built on an obedience model where it exchanges curiosity for compliance? Well, I was too. And through a grant from the Heterodox Academy, Zachary Cresswell and I created a curriculum based on understanding critical thinking. It's absolutely free and it's available at williamroosh.com/critical thinking.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh. I'm doing another solo podcast. The topic for today is the comment section of social media. And there's a whole bunch of things I'd like to talk about with regard to the comment section. It's a little bit more than I could do on my social media, so I thought I'd do a podcast about it. It really goes into two specific categories, I guess. One would be on my personal account, and then one would be on other accounts. So what I mean by other accounts is one of the ways that I use social media when I do have the time, I like to go to kind of more politically driven accounts and spark thought. One of the things that Socrates did back in ancient Greece was he would walk around town and just ask people questions around town about why they had the beliefs that they did and things like that. And it upset a lot of people. And then eventually, convicted him of corrupting the youth and sentenced him to death. And I recognize that this is not popular. And I love Socrates. I love the Socratic method. But what I like to do is go on to a page when they have like a very concrete stance, and I just pose a question, pose an idea to kind of challenge that. And typically people come after me, because I'm challenging thought in a very similar way. I'm no Socrates, but I can learn from the best. And then there's my own social media account, Will Roosh on Instagram, and on that I'll put out my ideas. And then I love constructive criticism because I think that's how we get to the best ideas. So I put it out there that I'm open to it. But the comment section critiques me and my ideas, but then also they go at each other. So I have actually a pretty diverse following on my social media of people from the left and the right. People across age group. It's about 60% female because I think Instagram tends to lean a little bit more female. My YouTube audience leans more male because I think YouTube leans more male. But then what happens in the comment section is there's critiques of me. Some are very useful. Some are not constructive at all. And then there's back and forth among people. And I promote my 3 pillars of intellectual humility, genuine curiosity, and grace. And I try to promote those. I try to model those. Everything I put online, which is a lot now, I want to be okay with that going far and wide. So some of you might be aware of the kind of viral conversation I had with Arthur Shivy Brooks and Kate Slater and Louisa Duran. About 2 years ago, we did a conversation on critical race theory in the classroom. And I thought it was really important conversation because, 2 hours of having a critical race theory teachers talk about what they believe and what they want is very hard to get, very rare. And I wanted that to go far and wide. They wanted to keep it shut down. I was getting threatened with lawsuits and stuff just to share this Instagram live. But I wanted it to go far and wide because I want to test my ideas. So everything I've done, every way I conducted myself, I want to put it out there. Because if I've conducted myself in an ugly way or holding up a bad idea, then I think one way to get rid of that bad idea or to correct my way is some level of like public humiliation. It's like if I'm embarrassed about the way I behaved, the way I treated somebody, or the name that I called somebody or something like that, then, if people are like, wow, that's really terrible what you did, I have to confront that. And then hopefully I will fix it. We learn more from our failures and successes a lot of times. In a basketball game, if you just hit that buzzer beater, you're like, yeah, we won. We don't need to look at our problems. But if you don't, then you go, oh, well, we lost. So let's start to reevaluate what we're doing. So everything I do, I do as much as it might be disruptive. I would want it to be able to stand by it and articulate maybe in more depth about why I said what I said or took the position that I did. But I want it to go far and wide. So I try to model certain behaviors, but regardless of all this stuff, people are really terrible in my comment section. And, I've had conversations with people that said that I should censor more, that the people who are, bad faith actors, that I should cut them out. But I've had Daryl Davis on the podcast twice, and I've learned a lot from him in those conversations and beyond, where, someone has a bad idea or a bad approach, cutting yourself off from them and cutting them off from you and access to you. If I'm trying to model something different, I cut them off and shut them down. That's not going to correct their ways. If Daryl Davis would have got up and walked away from the table from that Ku Klux Klan guy, then I don't think that would have caused him to be like, I guess I'm wrong about black people. What it took was actual, lots of interactions with Daryl, a friendship, things like that. I think that's what it takes. So, I'll also for those that are following, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I love Jesus's teachings. And, Jesus said that it's, when people are like, why are you hanging out with these sinners, and these bad people, and these tax collectors and all this stuff, these thieves and prostitutes? And it's like, it's the sick that need a doctor, not the healthy. So the people that are really terrible in my comment section, I don't know. I'm idealistic, but there's some element of me that thinks like if I cut them out, then they're not gonna, I have no way of accessing them. It's the school teacher in me of get that kid in the back of the room who doesn't want to do anything with school, and maybe I can get him, that kind of thing. But overall, in the comment section, what is fascinating to me is the lack of humility and curiosity, and just the overabundance of hubris and arrogance. It's really interesting. I mean, people are so sure of themselves. They're so sure of their positions on really controversial issues, really complex issues. These big complex issues about guns and abortion and immigration and war and Democrats and Republicans and all that kind of stuff. It's contentious for a reason. It's down a 50-50 split for a reason. Trump terrible, Trump great. It's damn near 50-50. So if you're so certain that you're right and you're so certain that they're wrong, how could that possibly be that so many people are wrong? And what it tends to do is cut down into two things. If someone disagrees with me, then they're either immoral or they're ignorant. It couldn't possibly be that they see something I don't. And that level of hubris of I just know that I'm right is something that I think is very, very interesting within the comment section. Mark Twain had a quote: "It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just isn't so." Yeah, that feels like the comment section of social media. I don't know much about Twitter. I'm on Twitter, I think, but I don't go on there much. TikTok, etc. But I'm more on Instagram, and people are just so sure. And Epictetus said it's very hard to fill a mind that is already full. It's like you can't learn if you're certain that you already know it. And as a teacher that's trying to use social media for educational purposes, not saying I have all the answers, but saying I have a thinking process that might be able to benefit you. For someone like me, this amount of certainty is the antithesis to education. I know this, then I'm not going to learn it. And I think that's a real problem. So as far as the cruelty and how mean the comment section is, I think it's a couple of things. One is there is a very clear barrier. It's kind of like when people are screaming at you in your car and they're giving the double middle fingers and yelling at you. It's like, I'm behind glass and metal. It gives you a sense of security. So I think that part of this, what's happening on social media is you get the same kind of dopamine hit of badassery, feeling like a tough guy to some degree, and courage. You get that feeling of like, I'm courageous. I'm standing up to these bad ideas, standing up to the Nazis or standing up to the bad criminals or whatever it might be. I can do this, but it's not really. It's not really. You're not really standing up. Like you're protected. So it's almost like pornography. Like you're not really hooking up. You're tricking your mind into thinking that. So it like kind of does the job, but not really. And it does it in a way that's probably pretty dangerous. I think that there's a big element of that going on where people are like, I get called all kinds of, this guy's a clown, whatever it is, this clown face, blah, blah, blah. I get called a clown a lot. An idiot. I get called whatever, all these different, I don't even know what some of the insults are, cuck or something like that, like all these wimp or whatever it is like, they're saying that a lot of times. I'd say, 4 out of 5 times it's an anonymous private account, or it's an anonymous account with like almost no posts and almost no followers or anything like that. But I think that it gives them a sense of that, like, especially like the men who do it, I think it comes off as like a sense of like, I'm tough. I think for a guy that doesn't get that for whatever reason, maybe he doesn't get that with his daily job because he's not in the military or doing he's not doing labor jobs that like you actually are tough. I think it gives them a sense of that. I think for women that do it, I think that leans along the lines of the flip side of empathy. I think that the women that are cruel in the comment section to me or to other people, I think what it is that mama bear thing. Empathy is a beautiful thing. You feel the pain of another, but we have it in our genetics so that when our baby is crying, we can feel its pain and then we go tend to it. So it's actually to feel the pain of a helpless individual so that we can protect it, so we can take care of it. And which is wonderful. But there's a flip side to that the most dangerous thing in the forest is a mother bear because it's protecting its baby cubs that are defenseless. And what happens is, I think that this is more on the female side, is the mother bear thing of they see what I'm saying or what other people are saying as an attack on the vulnerable. So this could be from the left or the right, whatever the vulnerable might be. The vulnerable could be a fetus. The vulnerable could be a child in the LGBTQ, community, whatever it is you're attacking the vulnerable. So I'm going to protect that vulnerable and come after you, mother bear lioness type of thing. I think it was Glennon Doyle. She posted this like meme of a mountain lion, like with its teeth bared and its cubs like behind it. And it says, "Leave trans kids alone." And I think that's pretty accurate, as far as like why men do it, why women do it. And these are generalizations, obviously. But I get called a whole bunch of different things in the comments section. What's really interesting is I get critiques from the left and the right. I get them more from the left, I'd say, but I do get them from the right as well. Typically, what happens when I challenge some thought on the left is right away I'm a Trumper or I'm a conservative. And when I respond, which is sometimes what I do, of like, I actually didn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I've been pretty critical of Donald Trump. I've also supported him on some of the things that he did and said and things like that. I think the media mistreated him in some ways, but I think that they were accurate in some ways. But regardless, I say like, I never voted for him. I never really supported him. And I voted for a Republican only in recent local elections because I live in Los Angeles and I'm a balanced guy. And I think the balance is off here in Los Angeles. But if I was in Mississippi, I probably wouldn't vote Republican. So I've never voted Republican for a national office. And when you say that to them, they don't know what to do because they're so used to this like simplistic mindset of if you are against me, you must be the other thing. Like there's no nuance here. It's binary. You're either a 1 or a 0. And if you're critiquing a 1, you must be a 0. So I think that's really interesting. And then another interesting one when I critique some of the things happening in schools, or I even just, or what I do is I come after, I just challenge thought. I shouldn't even say I come after. I challenge thought to conservatives. And I mention that I'm a school teacher. They look at my bio and they see I'm a school teacher. They go right to an indoctrinating leftist school teacher trying to brainwash kids. And that's funny. Just like the Trump thing's funny. Like I'm a Trumper who's never voted for Trump. Never supported him in any kind of political way, but I'm a Trumper. And the same thing with the ones and zeros binary is I'm a leftist indoctrinating teacher. Like, aside from the fact that I have been more critical of like what's happening in the classroom for a longer period of time than almost any other teacher in social media. Like, I don't know if there is another classroom teacher on Instagram that's been critical of, critical social justice and all this kind of stuff for longer than I have. I mean, as soon as I got on social media in 2018, I was talking about this stuff and being very critical of what was happening in the classroom. So it's been 5 years. I don't know what other classroom teacher is vocal about that, because a lot of them might think it, but they can't for a variety of reasons. So I think it's very interesting that the critiques that I get from the left and the right tend to fall along those lines. Oh, and also I get called like a white man more than probably anything. And I get that more from like the political left, but I get it from the right too. I'm critical of like Candace Owens sometimes. And right away people go to, the white man telling a black woman what to think. That's an interesting one. Like, you go right to my immutable characteristics. You attack me instead of attacking my ideas or even just like answering my questions, because they are genuine questions. It goes right to, my race and gender. And I get it. I look the part. I'm over 6 feet tall. I'm a heterosexual. I'm now Christian. I'm white. I'm fairly symmetrical. Like, I get it. Like, I look like the enemy if you're looking at the intersectionality matrix. So I understand that. But the way I kind of see this is I can take the critiques in social media. I'm fascinated by the hubris and the lack of curiosity. And for someone that's trying to spark curiosity, that gets frustrating sometimes. One of the things that I do is when people are really terrible to me, one of the things I do is I like grab my phone and I like make a video. So I hold it up and I say like, hi, I'm Will. Sometimes I'll be with my kid or something like that. I'll be like, oh, this is Gray or this is Mac or Bo. And, say hi. Okay, I'm a real person. I don't know why you're being mean to me. If I offended you in some way, I'm sorry. I go into this whole thing and it's very, very sincere. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me? Sometimes I type it, sometimes I send a video, I send a DM, whatever it is. But when people say that I'm terrible, I'm dangerous in the classroom, or I have bad ideas, or I'm an idiot, or whatever it is, I tend to lean into, let's have a conversation about it then. Let's talk. And I mean, it's 1 out of 20, probably not even. Honestly, it's probably like 1 out of like 30 or 40 take me up on it. They have in the past. And when they have, it almost always goes fairly well because, if you get my download Debate to Dialogue, it's on my website. I have these ways of connecting with people that disagree with me, where we can find common ground and we can agree on the trunk of the tree and disagree on the branches. And then we can learn from why we disagree on the branches. But, there was a teenage transgender trans woman, trans girl. She was like a teenager who was transitioning. She was a black girl from the South, and I forget exactly where she was, but she critiqued me at one point about what I was talking about, and I reached out to her and said like, "Hey, would you want to have a conversation?" And she came on Instagram Live, and we had a conversation, and couldn't be much more different. In the way we viewed a lot of things and things like that. But it ended very cordially, and I still talk to that person, just like here and there on Instagram from time to time, still to this day. But you have to be willing to talk. You have to be willing to talk. I mean, that's the way that we're going to advance. And the fact that we have this crazy cool technology of social media to be social and to connect with people that are different than ourselves, and we use it just to get solidified into our echo chambers. When you can get access to anything, you go to what feels comfortable. And education is inherently uncomfortable. So that it's very interesting how that happens. But look, I mean, you put yourself out on social media. So everyone, The Rock or Oprah or whoever it is, Joe Rogan, whoever puts themselves out there, they're gonna get critiques. It just is. There's going to be people, some are valid, some people are just haters, and especially as you do better, the haters come out. David Goggins said, you're never going to find a hater that's doing better than you. And I think that's accurate. So as my account grew or something like that, as a certain video goes like viral and gets 1 million views or something, those are the ones that people come after me more. But you could take the approach of never going into the comment section. But I think that as much as it can be a waste of time, and I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, I think that there's a real benefit to going in and interacting with this, because there might be some good points. And, there are valid points that people have. There's a lot of smart people out there that can highlight my blind spots, and that'll get me closer and closer to better ideas. I'm sorry. But, like, you're gonna get critiques and you're gonna have people be rude to you. But the question is like, essentially you could be a bridge or you could be a doormat. They're both gonna get walked on. So I'm gonna choose to be a bridge and try and bridge the divides in our country, bridge people to getting closer to the truth, whatever the truth is, to get people to be a more critical thinker. If that means that you have to call me a clown, or call me, a cis-het white man, or call me a Trumper, or call me a leftist, or a libtard, or all these things that I get called, like, that's fine. I mean, I taught high school in the hood for a while. Like, I get called a lot of names for the kind of greater good, and I see the greater good as education in this case. So I think that I look at the comment section as like kind of like a case study on human beings and the way that we're going to be interacting in this, like, technologically advanced, modern world of ours. But also, so like the psychology of how people would be in that situation. But also, I do see it as an opportunity to try and bridge some of these gaps and model that behavior and things like that. Some people have been really, really critical, and then I send them DMs, and over time they kind of, loosen up, and they say, like, I really disagree with you, but I see that you're sincere. I'm a lot of things, ignorant for sure. I'm a dummy with a lot of things, but insincere isn't one of them. I get called insincere or fake, like I'm putting out like a fake thing online. That bothers me. I'm an Enneagram 4, my wife says. So I don't like being misunderstood. And I think that bothers me. Like, when people truly do believe, and sometimes they're just trolling, but sometimes they truly do believe that I'm being insincere. I try my best to show that I'm not. And, the tools that I have is, inviting them to have a conversation publicly or privately. The reason I tend to lean toward publicly is because I look at everything as a teaching opportunity, and my time is limited. I'm a busy person with a lot going on, and I have 3 kids, and I have a job and family business, and then I'm running my own educational business now. It's a lot. So for me to have an hour-long conversation with one person, it just isn't. I want to use that conversation with one person to get out to teach a whole bunch of people. I think that's really, really valuable, So the reason I tend to go ask to go public with our conversations is more just for the teaching opportunity. And besides, if I have a bad idea and I get exposed, truly, I want to be embarrassed and ashamed for having those bad ideas, and that helps in front of a big group of people. But I understand that people, might be apprehensive about doing that, especially because my platform's grown. Comment section is just a really interesting thing. That was kind of all I have on it. I appreciate all of you for following with the podcast, subscribing. If you get it on Apple or Spotify, if you could write a review, that would be a huge help. Especially as I'm going to start to work into this homeschool curriculum world. I would love for more people to see what I'm about, so that they know that the stuff that I'm producing is an option for them. It's an option for their kids. If you're tired of the politicization of education. So whether you're in Florida or you're in, Los Angeles, whatever it is, I understand that you don't want politics maybe being taught to your kid. So I'm doing it in a way that's all about viewpoint diversity and trying to be as fair as possible to kind of all perspectives. So getting my name out there helps. It's really not to become insta famous. I don't see that as like a real like driving motivator for me. Like, a lot of followers. Sometimes my students, like, if they find me, they're like, wow, you have 36,000. They're like, that's really cool. It's like, I guess it is. But it's cool. Just like, it's cool to have, 50 kids want to get in my class and there's only 35 spots. Like, I want to be popular for that reason. Like, I want people to be interested in what I have to say so I can get access to them, so I can challenge my ideas and maybe spark some thought. So I want to have a bigger platform to spark thought not just for like my ego. My ego is not connected with like how many followers I have. It's really, truly not. But the way you can help me out is by subscribing to YouTube, writing reviews, interacting with my Instagram and YouTube, and sharing it. And I think that we can use these channels, these social media channels, to promote some good in the world. They're not going anywhere. Social media is not going anywhere. So let's get a better grasp on how to do it better. And if you believe in that, and you have this like moral kind of compass that you go, oh, I don't like what happens in these comment sections, I'm with you, then let's work together. And I have a platform right now, so let's work together. You can share my platform, and I'll try my best to keep promoting a better use of these landscapes that tend to be really, really toxic. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you.
Hey there, Cylinder Radio listeners. If you like the approach that I take on the podcast and social media and want to try and implement some of the strategies that I use to have productive conversations on challenging topics, check out my free downloadable guide, Debate to Dialogue. It's available on my website, williamroosh.com/debate to dialogue.